So I was browsing YouTube the other day and I came across this guy making a 200 card commander deck. And I was very intrigued by this concept, so I go and I click on the video. It's by this small YouTuber. I'm sure no one else has ever heard of him. I'm probably the first to find him, if I'm being completely honest. His name's Quips and Guac. But back to his video, he opened up by saying that he is the most unhinged deck builder, and that's just like that's false information. It's fake news. I wouldn't want the populace to be tainted by this false news, and so I decided that it's my duty to share with the world who the most unhinged deck builder actually is, and it's me. I'm an expert on him myself. Personally, I know him pretty well, and I know through that experience that he is in fact the most unhinged deck builder. And I decided that what other way to prove this is true other than making a $1 commander deck, one a thing that I can promise no one else has ever done. So, I start my search with a commander, just one little search. And this is kind of where things go downhill because I quickly realized that no one has ever in their lives made a $1 commander deck. And here's why. When we search for $1 commander, this is essentially me searching for a $1 commander in Moxfield because that's where I make all my decks. And I go here and I find the cheapest commander. That's 2 cents. Okay, well, in a lot of these commander decks I make, I let the commander be the except when it comes to cost. Anyways, we go here and we see that it's 2 cents. Well, okay, then I can just make a mono blue deck where this is the commander. It'll be $101. That's fine. $1, 1 cent. I can handle that. So now we have our commander. Our next problem arises when I search up for 1 cent cards. This is just going to be all the blue and colorless cards in order of price from lowest to highest. So we start here. We're like, okay, well, that's not 1 cent. So we move over to Curio Vendor and we just go down the list and we just keep adding them and adding them and adding them. Now we have all of the 1 cent cards. You want about 60 cards, 60 non-land cards and 40 lands. But then we get in here and we see I have 17 cards. Well, okay, then I'll move on to the next commander. All right, yeah, that'll be easy. Just change commander, remove him for the time being. So we scroll down here and we're like, okay, the next one's also mono blue, so that doesn't work. But okay, Tuscan Whisker, that's 2 colors. Still 3 cents, so it's going to be $1 and 2 cents of commander deck. That's fine. That's fine. We can make another exception. So we set him as commander. We then delete, that's not what that hotkey is. Get rid of all of these cards. And then we go and search for our Selesnya cards that are 1 cent. Scroll down here. All right, and then we just start going across the line again, of course, only getting 1 cent cards because that is the challenge we've set out for ourselves, because what else is more unhinged than showing up to game night with a $1 commander deck? That would be awesome to be able to do, to just pop in and be like, oh, here's my $1 deck. You guys are probably going to win, but let's see how it works. And of course, what we always want to do here is just add all these cards to see what's available to us and then remove the ones we don't like later on. Oh, that's funny. That's interesting. 32 cards. That's just over half of what we need. So it's about this point that it hits me. If I want to make a 1 cent only, cards that are only 1 cent commander deck, I'm going to have to make it 5 colors. It's going to have to be a WUBRG commander deck. Because I could just keep going down the line until I find the first commander or set of commanders, if there's cheap partners, I don't know currently, that allow me to make technically the cheapest commander deck. But that's boring. That's not deck building. That's just facts. That's just like statistics. That's not deck building. So we'll abandon this. We'll move on to hunt for the other commander. So then we do ID equals WUBRG is commander sort USD direction ascending. Okay. So then we scroll down here. Avatar Aang's not out yet, but he's going to be very expensive. So we find Tazri. Tazri Stalwart Survivor, the cheapest 5-color commander. as of the first time I looked this up and when I started making this video, it was 12 cents, but it's since gone down to 11 cents. That's good. That's more interesting, I guess. Gives us fewer cards to work with. So then we go and we set up Tazri, where... There she is. Set as commander. So let's go ahead and get all the basics up in here. We do plains, mountain, swamp, island, and forest, of course. You know, being cheap and wanting to use only 1 cent, obviously we're not going to get to use fancy lands. We're just going to be using basics. We just got to use the cheapest version of each of these. But that's a 6-cent swamp. Oh, okay. 1 cent plains. Okay, there we go. So we can play Tazri, and then we can tap our colors for any creature, for any color of mana. That works perfectly. Then we can just play anything we want. But you can only spend the mana to activate abilities of creatures. Oh, in that case, we just need a 1 cent creature that can add any mana of any color. So we just go and look up for Oracle text, add 1 mana, and we'll see what we get. That's 2 cents, and those don't even pay mana into them. It's this one that pays mana into it. It's 3 cents. We can't do a 1 cent commander deck. If we're not able to do all cards are 1 cent and it actually work, let's do, how much does Tazri cost? Tazri costs 11 cents. In that case, let's do all cards are 11 cents. Okay, deck tech time now. That is a tongue twister. Wow. Just as a reminder, all of the prices of these cards were as of the creation of this deck. That doesn't necessarily mean they are that much right now. When you get into the nitty gritty of like really low cost cards, it kind of fluctuates cents to cents. It's not that big in the grand scheme of things, but when you're dealing with things this small, it does matter. So first, let's go over our lands. We were allotted anything that was 11 cents or less. That means that I'm going to get funky with it. One thing about my deck building is I like to show off weird cards that aren't necessarily good in Magic because I play a low power Magic / like really cheap Magic because I don't want to spend a ridiculous amount of money on cardboard. I think that's ridiculous. And I don't really like playing super high power Magic in general anyways. 2 weird lands we're going to throw in here are Abandoned Outpost and Bog Wreckage. Those enter tapped. They're essentially basic lands, except you can sacrifice them and add a mana of any color. This is not good, but we kind of need mana fixing in a deck like this, so it'll work. And I think it's an interesting mechanic. Next, we're going to include as many scry lands as we can. That is Temple of Enlightenment, and that's the only one we get. All the other ones were over 11 cents, which is unfortunate. After that, we're going to include all lands you can pay into to add mana of any color. These are Unknown Shores, Shimmering Grotto, Hidden Grotto, Crystal Grotto, Cave of Temptation, and Captivating Cave. Hidden Grotto also surveils 1, which is really great. Same for Crystal Grotto, scrying 1. You love when you get just a little bit of added benefit for a land like this. After that, I included Temple of the False Gods because extra mana, why not? And then the final thing that's not basics are life lands, the ones that enter and gain you 1 life. You got Windscarred Crag, Tranquil Clove, Thornwood Falls, Swiftwater Cliffs, Scoured Barrens, Rugged Highlands, Jungle Hollow, Dismal Backwater, Blossoming Sands, and Bloodfell Caves. And after that are these specific arts of the basic lands, and in these amounts, 3 swamps, 3 plains, 5 mountains, 3 islands, 5 forests. I chose that mount for a reason. It's lost to me currently, but I think that makes the mana base pretty equal when it comes to the rest of the deck. Now, the next things we're going to need are activated abilities that we can sink our mana into that we're getting from Tazri. The first thing I could think of was Monstrosity, so I added in all of the Monstrosity cards. Some of them are really, really bad, and some of them are keepable, so I kept the ones that are keepable. Just in case you need a little reminder, Monstrosity is a keyword that you pay a certain amount of mana into, and then it gets a bunch of +1/+1 counters depending on whatever number is after Monstrosity. This can only be activated once ever, I think. Then it becomes monstrous, so it can't do it again. These are Gluttonous Cyclops, Ill-Tempered Cyclops, Calmes, Captain, Nemesis of Mortals, Nessian Asp, Polis Crusher, Stone Shock Giant, and Wildfire Cerberus. Some of these may seem bad. For instance, Calmes Captain, but it destroys artifacts and enchantments. Polis Crusher also destroys enchantments. Stone Shock Giant might make attacking easier depending on the situation, and Wildfire Cerberus will destroy token decks, which would be nice. Now, this is a lot of big boy creatures, but I would like some more. So we have a selection of a few other types. There are some that get +1/+1 for 1 mana. Those consist of Balshan Collaborator, which also has flying. We got Darkling Stalker, which also has regenerate for 1 mana. We have Drifting Shade, which also has flying. And then we have Dungeon Shade, which also has flying. Those are essentially the exact same card, by the way, just with different names. There's Evernight Shade, which also has Undying. There's also Looming Shade. Hardic Collaborator, which also has First Strike. Then there's Primeval Shambler and Shade of Trocaire, which has Suspend 3 for 1 mana as well. There's also a few creatures with a Fire Breathing like effect, which is where you pay 1 mana and it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Genasi Enforcers, which has Myriad, and it gives all Genasi Enforcers +1/+0 for 2 mana until end of turn. Goblin Fire Leaper, which is again 2 mana for +1/+0, but when it dies, it deals damage to target creature equal to its power. And then last for that list is Stonewright, which soul bonds with a creature, and whatever it's soul bonded with gets fire breathing, as well as it getting fire breathing itself. Also in here, just because I thought they would be nice includes, we're Almighty Brushwag, which has Trample. You can pay 4 and give it +3/+3 till end of turn. Arnie Broken Bow, which when it attacks, you can pay 1 and it gets 1 plus the biggest power among other creatures you have. Spirit Monger, just because I think it's an interesting card. Whenever it deals damage to a creature, it gets a +1/+1 counter. You can regenerate it, and you can make it a color of your choice, each for 1 mana. And then Targnar, Demon Fang Null, because there are some token things in here, and so I thought, well, if I'm able to go wide, I might as well throw this in, just in case it's useful. Then something I included as creatures that can get big, but like aren't super great. I just thought the cycle was interesting, are the Deceivers. There is Brutal Deceiver, Callous Deceiver, Cruel Deceiver, Feral Deceiver. I didn't include the white one because the white one is like really bad, and that's saying something considering these cards' abilities. I just thought it was interesting to be able to look at the top card, and if it's a land, they each get a benefit. And to help the creatures that I'm going to be pumping, I also included some creatures that can give keywords to those creatures for the turn. There's Conclave Guildmage, which gives tramples to all creatures, so that's if I'm going wide. Crimson Mage, which gives haste. Harmattan Efreet, which gives flying. Jorubai Murklurker, which gives lifelink. Raitclaw Gargantuan, which gives first strike. Skarga Guildmage, which gives trample to all creatures again. And Totentan's Swarm Piper, he's in here because whenever one of my creatures will die, because it's gonna happen, I'll get a 1/1 rat, and then I can give those rats Death Touch. Now we have some pretty basic bases to cover, like card draw. We have 1 card draw card, which is Mystic Archaeologist. Pay 5, draw 2 cards. Then we got Ramp, kind of, not really. It puts into our hand, both of them do. That's Ambitious Farmhand and Horizon Seeker. Then we have, like, quote-unquote protection things. We have Auriok Replica, which prevents all damage from one source that would be dealt to us specifically, and Benelish Missionary, which protects 1 blocking creature, essentially. Then we have Targeted Removal, which is going to be Defire Elemental. What a card. Then this next part is token generation, because I didn't understand how Tazri works exactly. Fun fact, you can only tap creatures for mana if they have another activated ability, so most tokens don't meet that requirement, but it's really late now and I don't feel like changing the deck at all, and these aren't necessarily bad when talking about this deck, because the whole deck's pretty bad. We have Alive and Well, which the main reason is there is to give us a ton of life. We have Dwarven Reinforcements, because it has Foretell. We have Gathering the Townsfolk, because I like Fateful Hour part. Ironroot Warlord is here. He does technically make creatures, but that's not why I have him here. His power is equal to the number of creatures we control. That's the part I like the most. Then Ovia Pashiri, Sage Lifecrafter. She can create 1/1s, but more importantly, she can create XXs, where X is the number of creatures we control. Then we have Sunhome Guildmage, which can technically create 1/1s, but that's probably not what it's going to be used for. It's more likely going to be used for the creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn if we're going wide. Then finally, Usher of the Fallen, which has a boast ability to create a 1/1. I have one other Lord type effect, which is Battershield Warrior. It's in the same vein as Sunhome Guildmage, that will give +1/+1 to all creatures till end of turn. And then we have some other like control-y pieces. I have 3 pacifism type enchantments. I don't remember why I added these originally, but I thought it was kind of funny when I was like finishing the deck up. So I was like, you know what? I'll just leave the pacifisms here for now because why not? We have Oppressive Raise, Prison Sentence, and Trapped in the Tower. After that, we have Life Drain, just in case that wins us the game, which it won't, but you know, you never know. It can be helpful, especially since you're gaining life from both of these. We got Dusk Wielder and Scholar of Aetherios. And the final section of this deck are just some extra abilities that I thought would be helpful or personally like. We'll start with Chamber Sentry, which essentially has Sunburst, and then you can pay X and tap it, remove a number of counters from it, a number of +1 counters from it, and deal that much damage to a target. Then you can pay Wooburg and return it from the graveyard to your hand. It's like super roundabout, but technically it's targeted removal. It's just overcosted to hell. Then we got Coastline Chimera, which lets me block as many creatures as I want as long as I can afford to keep paying for it with this same creature. Thought that would be a good use. And then because I already have a bunch of token stuff in here, we have Halcyon, who makes tokens into 4/4s for the turn. We have Patchwork Crawler, which lets me exile a creature card from my graveyard, and he will get all activated abilities of that creature card. Then we have Stormcaller of Keranos, which lets us scry. And finally, Vortex Elemental. I own this card, and if I didn't, I probably would never know it existed, but I really like it. I can pay to make something block it, and for one, whatever's blocking it or whatever is being blocked by it gets shuffled into its owner's library along with the Vortex Elemental. And that is the 11-cent commander deck with Tazri Stalwart Survivor as the commander. Altogether, this deck comes out to a very, very expensive $6.43. I think shipping to get all the cards would be more expensive. And that's kind of funny to me. Is this playable? Probably not, but it was an interesting experiment to do, and I think I might actually get this deck and try it out just because I think that could be fun. I did also technically make the 3-cent version because technically it works. It's just like super impossible. You rely on your mana fixing, which there's only 8 sources of. The ones that let you pay into them for a mana of a certain color are Abzan Devotee, Jeskai Devotee, and Mardu Devotee. Then there are some that change your lands. Those are Masked Bandits, Rakish Revelers, Spara's Adjudicators. And finally, there are some that let you just pay in for mana of any color, which are Prismite and Stonework Pack Beast. This is technically playable because of the mana fixing, but your lands are just 37 plains and then 1 Swiftwater Cliffs because those are the only ones that were 3 cents or lower. And then the rest of the deck I don't particularly feel like getting into because my main focus was the 11-cent one. That was the one I based the video around. But I will go ahead and say that this deck totals out to $2.14. That's quite an accomplishment, actually. That is easily the cheapest deck I've ever made. $2.14. Wow. And then I do technically have a deck list for the 1-cent one, but it doesn't work at all unless you just want to play the white ones. I will link all the Moxfield decks that I have gone over in this video in the description, so you can check them out if you want. I'll update some of them maybe sometimes. I don't plan on doing it all the time and having them all super up to date on the 3-cent, 11-cent, 1-cent restrictions, just because I don't care that much about the decks in reality. If you enjoyed this deck, I might go over a few of my other ones that I think are fun. If you are wondering what that background's been this whole time, it is an album cover for a song that I love. It is Candleburn Dorm Demo by Rabbitology. It is such a great song. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much, and you should really go check it out. It's great.